Hey, this is Stacey, one of the subject matter experts here on the e-GMAT team, and we are going to tackle this hard OG question on Marconi together. Before we get to work, just a reminder to drop a like below so I know you were here and that you found the video helpful. That way the team and I can keep making videos to help you and other students with the GMAT prep journey. Now, let's get to work. If you have not already solved this question, go ahead, hit the pause button, work through the question, and then hit play once you have finished to solve the question using that e-GMAT three-step approach with me. We're going to work through this solution utilizing that three-step approach, beginning with the first step of the meaning analysis. We're going to utilize this sentence structure to extract that meaning. As we begin reading, we see Marconi's conception of the radio was a substitute for the telephone. So I know this guy Marconi, I know that he was some kind of scientist, inventor, and he had this idea, and this idea was of the radio, and this idea was the radio was as a substitute for the telephone. Okay, so I'm going to keep reading to find out more about this idea. This idea for the radio, a tool for private conversation. So Marconi's conception of the radio was going to be as this tool of private conversation. Okay, instead of talking to people privately with the telephone, talk to them through the radio, a tool for private conversation. All right, logical, making sense. Instead, so now this instead is presenting me with that contrast. It is precisely the opposite. So it referring here to the radio. I always like to keep my pronouns in order. It is precisely the opposite. Okay, a tool for communicating with a large public audience. Okay, so now the radio is a tool for communicating with a mass group. Pretty logical, straightforward. So let's pull those key aspects out, just organize our meaning analysis using main ideas. So this first piece of the sentence told us that Marconi's idea of the radio was a substitute for the telephone. That was that first chunk that we analyzed. The second piece was he conceived of the radio as a tool for private communication. That was that second piece right there. And the third piece was that contrast we talked about. Instead, the radio has become a tool for mass communication. So showing us that contrast between what he first envisioned, that first idea he had, versus what it has actually become today. All right, meaning is pretty clear and straightforward here. So let's move into that second step, that error analysis, where we ask that next level question. Are there any grammatical errors in this sentence? Has the author communicated everything clearly using those tools of grammar? Now, if we look at the sentence, this tool for private conversation that we have sitting right here, this modifier. Now, in our meaning analysis, we analyzed that this was what he envisioned for the radio, that this radio would be a substitute for the telephone, and the radio would be this tool for private conversation. But where this modifier is sitting in the sentence, it seems to be modifying the telephone and not the actual radio itself, because it can't jump over this main verb in the sentence to get up here to the radio where it actually needs to be modifying. This modifier can't make that big of a jump, so it's illogically modifying the telephone the way it's grammatically placed in this sentence. So we indeed have a modifier error here. Now, the second piece we need to look at pretty carefully here is the use of the verb is, sitting right down here next to it is precisely the opposite. Because this is talking about the radio today is precisely the opposite. And the use of the simple present tense here expresses a universal fact, right? Today we know the radio is precisely the opposite. But in that meaning analysis, we were discussing that it was Marconi's idea in the past that the radio was going to be this tool for private conversation, and over the course of time, it is turned into precisely the opposite. And the use of the simple present tense doesn't express what has developed over time. So we need a verb tense here that's going to convey what Marconi conceptualized and what the radio has become today. And the use of is sitting right here with that simple present tense isn't conveying that development over the course of time to the present day. So we indeed have a verb tense error. So 2 errors going on, that modifier error and that verb error that we need to look to have corrected in our correct answer choice. So let's get moving through those answer choices, see what we can find. We're going to reject choice A for the verb error and the modifier error that we just discussed. Move through this answer choice analysis, looking at choice B next. Now, choice B, we're going to start with this discussion of which right here, this noun modifier. Now, if we look at this, it's a little ambiguous. It's unclear what which is referring to. Is it referring to this tool for private conversation, or is it referring to this telephone over here? We're not really sure. It could be referring to either one, so I'm not really sure which one. So we've got some ambiguity going on here. And if you also look, which is preceded by but sitting right here, and a comma plus but is an indicator that we're joining 2 independent clauses. And in this case, we don't have 2 independent clauses. So we actually have a structure issue here as well. So for both of these reasons, we're going to reject choice B and move on to choice C. Now, choice C, Marconi conceived of the radio as a tool for private conversation that could substitute for the telephone. Now here, we have a slightly far away noun modifier that is properly referring to the radio. Okay, so this slightly far away noun modifier is grammatically correct here. Now, if you're thinking, well, hold on a second, that can't jump over this prepositional phrase here, for. Actually, indeed, it can, because for is also modifying this tool. And if you're thinking, well, that modifies tool, well, radio and tool are one and the same here. So that can modify radio, which is the same as modifying tool, and it can make that jump over that prepositional phrase because that prepositional phrase is modifying the same entity. And that is absolutely grammatically correct to have that slightly far away noun modifier modify that entity radio. So that is indeed looking like our correct answer, but we're going to go ahead and look at choice D, which has popped up. Make sure D and E we can reject on solid ground. Now choice D is incorrect because we have an idiomatic error. You'll notice the use of conceived to be here, and that is idiomatically incorrect. The use of conceived as is preferred here. Also, the use of this noun modifier down here, which, is again illogically referring to the telephone, basically telling us the telephone has become a tool for mass communication, and we know that's not the intended meaning. So we are going to reject choice D for that idiomatic error and that incorrect usage of which. Now let's take a look at choice E. Now choice E is repeating that idiomatic error that we just saw in choice D, the use of conceived to be. So we know as would be preferred here. So we are going to reject for that idiom error right away. And then if you also notice the use of other than what it is. Now this expression is redundant in this sentence along with the use of precisely the opposite. The meaning of these two expressions express the same thing. So to say other than what it is, precisely the opposite, very similar in meaning, expressing almost the same thing. So we get that redundancy error, so we can reject choice E on those grounds, which makes choice C indeed our correct answer choice. Now this question has about a 63% accuracy rating. So if you landed on choice C and you were comfortable with that slightly far away noun modifier, that, nice work there. But if you landed on our second most popular choice, which is choice A, which is where about 22% of people do land, it is very possible that you missed those errors that we discussed in the meaning analysis, or that you're not comfortable with that slightly far away noun modifier and you didn't see how that could modify radio. You didn't understand that it could jump that prepositional phrase, or you didn't understand that radio as a tool, that those two entities were functioning pretty much as one and the same. So here is a link that you can copy down to an article on slightly far away noun modifiers and how they can modify a slightly far away noun, written by one of our SC experts, Shraddha. This can further clarify this concept for you and really help you cement this type of modifier. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe below so you can get alerts when new videos are posted. Happy learning.